How do you pick the best second location for a studio? Are there specific things you look for in a new area when looking to launch a second location? What kind of market research does this involve? Nate, I'm going to ping pong this one right over to you because you've had to do this 3 different times. We've done a couple episodes. We've done a couple episodes on a second location, but I do feel like this is coming from this one's phrased a little bit differently. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I would assume that what you're looking to do is grow, additional revenue channels. You're on a growth path, and you're looking to increase revenue, increase profitability, or maybe you're fine with your profitability, but you just want more of it. So, i.e., you go from, serving, say, 200 students in your current location to 400 students in two, and you're like, great, love it. Okay. First thing I would just point out around the why, we did a nice episode on when to grow, why to grow, how to grow. Maybe we can pull up that app number in a bit. But first thing I would say is whenever we're looking at growth opportunities, and this falls totally into that fourth bucket, Zach, of the new business bucket, I ask myself, am I capitalizing on my strength already right now? Right? So that's going to get to answering your first part of the question, which is what kind of questions do we ask around a second location? B, am I working with a known product suite, or am I introducing something brand new? And if I'm looking at something new, let's say your second location is going to be, like I've thought about a second location in Brooklyn that's only Mini Keys and Jam Band 101, only serving groups ages 4 to 8 with no private lesson, not even a community room performance space that like we're known for. So that to me actually is sort of almost kind of a new opportunity where we would have to brand specifically to that type of new location. So when we're saying, hey, I want to open this second location, are you planning on introducing new products there into your product suite? If you are, then you need to have more patience with the growth path on that new location, in my estimation. Whereas if I opened up a Brooklyn Music Factory second location and it had the exact same product suite, and let's say even the same layout as our current one, 9 studios plus a community room performance space, I would say, hey, I already know what this is. So I can be more predictive in terms of the growth path. Okay, so now specifically to answer your questions, how to pick the best second location for a studio. So we talked a little bit about this before around knowing your demographic well, right? So for example, at Brooklyn Music Factory, I know exactly where we get our customers. I have a zip code map for those customers. I have an address spreadsheet for those. I know where they're coming from within Brooklyn. And I know where the highest percentage of customers are coming from, i.e. that zip code, or in the BK, it's going to be more neighborhoody than zip codey, but you understand, it's like a neighborhood. So then from within that neighborhood, I'm saying, okay, well, what is the demographic in this neighborhood? And I'm getting a very clear sense of predominantly who makes up that neighborhood. And then I'm going to go there and I'm going to say, okay, now I have a fairly decent picture of who my clients are currently. And I'm going to look for that next location that mirrors it as closely as possible. And this may seem sort of obvious to say out loud, but you know who you serve now. So you don't want to all of a sudden take the risk of trying to serve a whole new demographic with the same product suite, because you've probably put in so much effort around your defining your purpose, your why, delivering a message of what you're going to promise in that lesson experience, in that 7 to 10 year musician's journey. You put in all this effort around that, but then if you then go to a new market and decide you're going to have a different demographic, well, then that promise and that product suite may not be a good market fit at all, right? So if I were you, like let's say we were hanging out together and trying to identify that location for BMF, right? I would be hyper specific that I'm only looking right now in terms of the history of this company to opening a location that's going to serve as close to the same demographic with the same product suite as I already know right now, because I've spent 13 years developing that, right? And I've had to say no to so many customers over the years because we couldn't serve and deliver on the promise. So now we know who we deliver on the promise with. So I would want to replicate that 2, 3, 4 more times. And I'll literally do that. This may happen in Brooklyn, but I'm only going to go to certain neighborhoods within Brooklyn or Manhattan, right? I'm not going to go anywhere because New York is a huge place, right? It's not the demographic isn't identical. So maybe I'll skip. Maybe I'll skim the next two, and then we'll move on to the next question in the interest of time.
Well, I actually want to jump in here, Nate.
Oh, Daniel, do it.
Yeah. So the next part of the question, and to actually say, to follow up on something Nate just said there, we have done 3 episodes on opening a new location, episode 71 and 72. That was a 2-part, and then all the way back on episode 17. So those are 3 that folks could go back and reference. But part of Zach's question was, are there specific things you look for in a new area when looking to launch, and what kind of market research does this involve? That probably could be its own series of episodes. There is a tool that I want to show everyone here. I'm just going to turn this on. You can find lots of maps like this. This one's just called justicemap.org. This just shows income levels. And this is actually my area. And specifically, I live in this little sliver right here. This is where I live. When Nate earlier, and of course, for those who are listening, you can't see this, but you could go to YouTube and check out the visual version of this, or you could just go to justicemap.org and look at in your own area. When I mapped where all my students came from, so I literally, there's another tool, can't remember what it is right now, but I could take all the addresses that I pull off my invoice software, pull all the addresses, drop them in there, and it would put a pin on the map for all of my students. 80% of my students were in this blue area and this area up here, which are the 2 highest income areas in my area. So there are implications for this when thinking about putting a second location somewhere. There are implications for this when you're thinking about where to spend your advertising dollars.
Yep.
Not that. So when I would advertise specifically in areas, I would use tools like this to figure out, well, where are the people who are likely going to say yes to me? Because in this area over here has 3 times the population of my area here. This is called Franklin Township. This is called Perry Township. And even though I would advertise in this area, my Google Ads touched here, I would rarely get calls or form fills from here. And with the ones that I did, they would ask about price. I would tell them and they'd go away. I rarely signed up people in this area. So it wasn't as if I was trying to avoid that area. I still advertised over there. I just didn't get as much response. And it wasn't often as productive as when I advertised in these areas. So that is a tool where you could go and kind of check out your area and know the best places to market, advertise, and potentially put a second location.
Daniel, can I add something to that map?
Sure.
So if you look down there over to the left, you saw Smith Valley, which geographically may be far.
Yep.
Right. So i.e., if Daniel in a 1 studio group lesson program, it wouldn't have been appropriate for him to go there. But in Zach's question, when he's looking for a second location, it's very appropriate. Let me put out a couple of other things just on that tip that I've just sort of some of the benefits of multi-locations, et cetera. We've done some really nice episodes with Jeff Homer, who has Ensemble Schools. And one of the benefits he talks about, Zach, is the idea of being able to hire. It improves your hiring funnel and your benefits package, because now you're bringing in these teachers that you might only be able to book. Let's take Daniel's example. In Franklin Township, you might only be able to book them 3 days a week there, but then you can put them the other 2 days a week in Smith Valley. Now you're giving a different kind of offer, and you and I both know that offer is really important in your hiring funnel, right? When you're recruiting A-list teachers in, and you come back to them and say, "Let me give you 1.5 days of work," right? It's really hard. You have to have a hell of a pitch to get them to stay with you, right? But if you could offer 4 days and you split between 2 locations, and between you and I, that's one of the reasons why I'm so attracted by this line of thinking you're on, because I've really thought, open a second location over here and a third location over here, and I can see it radically improving our hiring process and especially our teacher retention, which, as we all know, every listener knows here, you want high student retention. What do you need? High teacher retention. right? So you're building a culture of teachers that want to stay with you for, 3, 5, 10 years. Or in the case of what do we just do, ASM Aurora, we got a great episode with an owner of a school in Ohio. She got teachers there that have been there for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Dig it.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing. Okay.
One last thing, Nate, I just wanted to follow up on your comment on the map. I said 80% of my students came from that one area. A ton of students actually came from Smith Valley. They were willing to commute all the way out to me, and I did actually advertise over there. Yeah, it's so interesting.
I love that. Hold on, I got a ping pong right off that, because we had a school owner who was interested in moving. She wasn't opening a second location. She just needed to move like 12 miles because she wanted better rent. And so one of the things that Daniel and I suggested she do was literally reach out to what we call at BMF our royal families, the ones that are deeply engaged, and say, hey, I'm thinking about moving over here. Would you consider driving 7 extra miles to go to this awesome new home? So sort of, it's not exactly the same as what Daniel said, but it's linked in terms of that customer research, just being willing to ask, hey, would you actually just come from Smith Valley, or should I consider opening a second location there?